What if we as gardeners had an opportunity to give people something to talk about? To give them something to talk about between here and Christmas, because we were able to grow in our faith in amazing ways. Wouldn't that be fantastic if we could somehow find a way to grow closer to God between here and Christmas? Now, do you realize that there are only 65 more days before Christmas, more shopping days? For some of you, this is going to be a little motivation, right, to get out there and finish what you've done. For the rest of us, it's permission not to get it done. But what if I said to you today that the one who loves you more than you ever know wants to give you a special gift on Christmas? What if I said to you, you could be closer to God by Christmas than you ever have been before, because that is the gift that God wants to give you? Would you step into that? Would you be willing to step into that and to participate in that? Well, I do think that that's what God does want for us. Today our message is the gift, growing together in faith, and that the focus is growing up. Next week we're going to grow in, but this week we're growing up. And we start our fall fellowship campaign. So if you haven't received it already, you'll soon be receiving in a mail an opportunity to participate in stewardship. Now, just like your household, the church functions better when we're able to budget for the year to come, and the only way we can do that is with your help. For some, this is an opportunity to consider how God has already blessed us and to respond by giving. For those who feel comfortable pledging, we encourage you to do so this fall. But stewardship is about more than just planning on what we're giving financially. Stewardship is a time for us to consider how God is calling us to live in the year to come as well. This year, alongside our stewardship campaign, we're looking at how it is as we as a community of faith can grow in faith together. And we're going to get a jump on that new year. We're going to get a 65-day jump, and we are going to be well into the habits of growing in faith together long before 1/1/19. The truth is, if you really want to experience joy and new life at Christmas this year, you need to consider what Paul says. Paul says this. He says, "We are not meant to remain as children at the mercy of every chance wind of teaching. Instead, we are meant to hold firmly to the truth in love and grow up in every way into Christ." What if today we committed to hold firmly to the truth in love and simply ask God to help each and every one of us grow up in our spiritual faith? Personally, I can't think of a better Christmas gift I could receive than to have a clearer understanding and personal experience with the love of God that is for me and for others. But the only way that is going to happen is if I'm intentional about it. We can only grow in our faith if we commit to do so. Now, I'm sure you've heard it one time and another. I've preached it here, is it takes at least 40 days to establish a habit. Well, guess what? It just so happens, starting today, we have 65 days to work on habits that will help bring us closer to God. Growing up means deciding you want to find ways to connect with God. You want to be in relationship with God. For me, it's spending more time with this. And I have to tell you, I picked up a new message this week because I heard that Eugene Peterson is in hospice care. And he is the man who gave us this amazing translation of the Bible that seems to work for so many of us. And so I wanted to have the word that he spent his life working on in my hand for this new adventure for me. So for me, it means spending a little more time in this. Now, I have to tell you, I just started the clinical pastoral education process that the Methodist Church is requiring me to take to be serving as your pastor, which has added about 17 hours to my week. So I'm not going to be studying hours and hours and hours. But you know what? I'm going to commit to 5, 10, 15. Every morning I'm going to wake up and I'm going to decide if I have 5 minutes, 10 minutes, or 15 minutes to dig into God's Word in one way or another. So for me, my habit that I'm going to work on is the Bible, and it's going to be studying the Bible. For you, it might be something very different. For you, it might be committing to look again at the Course in Miracles, or committing to learn about those spiritual topics that are important to you. You may seek to connect with God through some artistic practice. Whatever it is, I want to encourage you to say, I'm going to form a habit on this day that will bring me closer to God at Christmas. Now, habits are good things to have, but chances are you are only going to participate in a habit if you're able to do it in a way that feeds you. Do you know that God has put God's thumbprint, I like to say, on each and every one of us? We are each unique. There are no two people who are alike in this church. In fact, even identical twins, they are not alike. We all have a different thumbprint. We all have a different voice print, a unique eye print, a unique fingerprint, handprint, a unique footprint. You have a unique heartbeat. You have a unique learning style as well. We each learn differently than the person that sits next to us. What's most important as you think about establishing a habit is figuring out what learning style you have. For some of you, listening is the main form of learning, which you being here today, well, that's really, really great. But do you know studies show that our time together here on Sunday have really little meaning after 72 hours, because most of us who are not learners through ear forget what is said within 72 hours unless we write it down. For me, that's very encouraging as a pastor to know that within 3 days you've totally forgotten what goes on here. But there are people who learn through listening. Then there are other people who are visual learners. You like to read. You like to watch. You appreciate a good book or a documentary or a movie or something that helps you in learning. Some of us this past week went to a movie with the Heartland Film Festival, which is just filled with learning opportunities. We went to a movie called The Turnout that talks a little bit about human trafficking and the challenges that this nation is facing in that. That kind of learning is important for many of us. Some people learn through talking. We learn through talking it out. We need space to consider an idea, and we need space to figure something out and to bounce it off of other people until we can truly understand it and own it as our own. My husband and our board would agree that I'm a person who likes to talk it out. I love it. Then there are those who learn by working it out. You know, these are the people who never pick up the manual, who just start working on whatever it is that they're working on, and eventually they figure out how to put together that machine, or eventually they figure out that kinesthetic learning, how their life works best. So these are just 5 different learning types. And so I want to encourage you in whatever it is that you choose, the Bible, the Course for Miracles, whatever it may be, figure out your learning style. You can listen here on Sundays. You can go home and read or watch. You can talk to other people about your faith, and then you can truly try to practice your faith. Then the next thing you have to do is truly participate and commit to a daily practice in your preferred learning style. On your bulletin, there's a place there today and some questions to consider. What I want to ask you is consider your learning style. Think about it. How do you best learn? And then make this a priority, not only with whatever study you try, but consider what learning you have in your life, and consider how to go ahead and work that learning into everything that you do. You know, in John 13:17 says, "Now you know these things, you'll be blessed if you practice them." Once you identify your learning style, it's so true, practice makes perfect. Practice makes perfect. And you know, we see people all around us who have figured this out. Now I'm going to put somebody's picture up here. If you have any feelings about this person, today is the day to let them go. Just let those feelings go. But do you realize that Tom Brady is one of the oldest football players of all time? Do you realize that? Do you realize that he is playing football with kids who were not born when he started playing football? That is pretty profound, to be able to keep going that long. Just let go. I see the feelings. I can see it. Just let go of all of that. But do you know how he says he's been able to do that? Of course, practice. Practice, practice. He is able to stay his best because he has put together a practice, not just during season, but for the whole of his life and living. Every morning he gets up and he goes to the gym. But not only does he go to the gym, but then he commits himself to eat breakfast every day with his family. He commits himself to eat right. He commits himself to all of these different things. And of course, he's put together an extreme discipline that works for him. Every day, the first thing he does when he wakes up is he drinks 20 ounces of water. And I have to tell you, since I've read this, I've tried this, and it's absolutely miserable, but it may work for you. What is it that you can do? What kind of practice can you develop between now and Christmas that will help you get closer to God? And let me tell you, for me, it is not going to be drinking 20 ounces of water. It's going to be something very different, but I'm going to find a way to commit just a few moments at a time. You don't grow closer in relationship with God and others by knowing it's good, but by doing something about it. There are lots of things that can pull on you. What if we developed habits that our first inclination was to pull closer to God and let everything else go, realizing that if we work on that relationship, everything else will follow? All we have to do is give it a chance and to practice it. Now, we don't only have folks participating we don't even only see Tom Brady doing this, but do you know we have a group of gardeners who have become a disciplined team and are working together for Team World Vision. Remember, we did this last year. Some of us have not been quite so disciplined this year, but we still have a team of people who are disciplined. And in 2 weeks, they will be running for Team World Vision to bring water to Africa. We have Patrice, we have Sherry, we have Simi, we have a team of people, Dave, we have a team of people who have decided, I'm going to commit to doing the Monumental Marathon, and I'm going to raise funds for kids in Africa. Now, isn't that amazing? That not only does it do something good for them, but it's doing something good for someone else as well. I have to tell you, I am amazed by Patrice and what has happened in her life since getting to know her here at the garden. She's gone through a great loss, some might say, and a retirement. And for some, that's a challenge when it wasn't quite what you envisioned your life to be. But what Patrice did was she took that and realized it was an opportunity for her to figure out how to get closer to God. So the first thing she did was she explored and experimented as to where God was calling her. And do you know, by making that commitment, by living with intention, she's been able to figure out where she belongs. She shared with us last week she's a big sis. She's doing some work with child advocates. She's running for water. All those things that she wanted to do while she was still working, she has now found a way to do. How many of you thought throughout your life and your working life, oh, if I only had time, I would do this? Well, if you're retired, rename those things today. Rename those things and realize that you too can grow in some way or another, no matter where you are on the journey. Now, I mentioned before that it's important for us to not only develop these habits, but it's also important for us, if we're going to grow in relationship with God and to do something about it, to make a covenant with God, to make a promise to God. Now, let me tell you, this promise is really not about God. This promise is really more about you. And today, if you promise to commit to be in closer relationship with God and to know more about you and to know more about God's love for you and about God's love for others, I guarantee you, making that promise, living into that promise, will transform your life between here and Christmas. See, when I say promise and covenant, it gets real, doesn't it? I mean, like I said, God doesn't need your promise. We're the ones who need it. I mean, what if you didn't sign a contract to pay your monthly car payment or your mortgage? I mean, what if that wasn't actually required? Would it be the first thing on your list every month to get it done? Probably not. What if you said to your spouse, who you're in a covenant or promise relationship with, you know what, I am going to be faithful to you about 82% of the time? Doesn't work, does it? See, if you choose today to make a promise to God, that means you are all in, that you have a willingness to be all in, that you have a willingness to grow and to live your life in such a way that you look forward to each day. Remember, it's not about thinking about God's blessing and knowing about it. It's about doing it, doing the right thing, so that you can create habits and a lifestyle that are reflective of God's love for you. You just have to be around people like Patrice and other people who have found a way to renew their spirit, to say, I kind of want what that person has. And so often it has to do with making a commitment to God. In the weeks to come, we're going to consider again how it is that we can grow in faith together. As I said, this week it's growing up. How are we going to grow up? How are we going to grow up and start eating the solid food of our faith, and to start really growing in ways that we do believe that we can transform the world with the love of God? Next week, it's growing in. How do you grow into your relationship with God from an inward position? Then in the weeks to come, we'll talk about how we do it here as a community of faith, and then how it is that we can do it in smaller group settings with the people that we're closest to. So take a look at your bulletin again here real quick, and consider the questions that have been put in there for you. The first is, how do you best learn? I best learn by seeking to apply this to my life, by talking it through with others, and by committing to the days I can, 5 minutes, 10 minutes, and 15 minutes. What brings you, the next question is, what habit could you establish between now and Christmas that could bring you closer to God? For some, it could be an app on the phone, and start each day with whatever it is that devotion is that works for you. For others, it might be, again, committing to the Course in Miracles, which is a beautiful study about how God is at work in this world by Marianne Williamson. So think about, what habit could I establish between now and Christmas? A habit and something you would enjoy doing that will bring you closer to God. And then, and I mean this sincerely, what do you want for Christmas? What do you want for Christmas? Then I'm going to encourage you, if you feel like sharing, go to the website, because there's a place where you can leave remarks and put them on there and say, you know what, this is the promise or the covenant I'm making with God between now and Christmas. And everyone who leads one of those, I will, along with the prayer requests I receive after Sunday, I will pray for you on that journey. I will pray that God will help you receive this gift for Christmas. I don't know if you noticed, but the Mayhews are going to have a baby. They are going to have a baby. Not here this morning. On Christmas, at Christmas, they're going to have a new baby. You know, in some ways, you're kind of like that baby. You're going to be born in a new way. You're going to be born in a profound way if, like that baby, you have a willingness to be fed by the love of God. You have the willingness to take care of yourself, to figure out where God is calling you forth. I believe that we can grow in our faith together if we simply identify how works best for us, what we want to do, we commit to one another, and we indeed believe in the love of God enough, more than enough, for all of us. Will you pray with me? Holy God, we come into your presence on this day, asking you to help us grow up, to help us truly be the children you have called us to be. not in an immature faith, but in a strong, mature faith. Be with us this week as we identify what works for us, as we commit to you, as we commit to a life of transforming the world with the power of your love. Amen.
Amen.
I'm going to invite Larry Hutchison up here, and then after his announcement, people from the GLT and lots of us will be available in the lobby to share in conversation. Shall we dance, Larry?
Good morning, fellow gardeners. You may recall that last week, Bill Brown, Ali Hovde, and I talked a lot about what we had learned from the survey that you had taken 3 or 4 weeks ago. And we learned a lot, and some of it was surprising. One of the surprises that showed up was that a lot of people suggested that we go to one service instead of the 2 that we have been having for the last few years. And there must be God's hand in this world in some way, because at about the same time, Doug Stark, and I think we all know that we enjoy this beef and board facility because of the generosity of Doug Stark. Doug said, you know, it sure helped me a lot if the garden went to one service. It would take a lot of pressure off of my working staff, and it would be an all-around good thing for us. So lo and behold, something that the garden GLT might have lingered over for some time immediately became a great idea. Let's go to one service. And so that's what we are going to do. We're going to go to one service, and I do want to emphasize that nothing's going to change. There will be the same band. The format of the service will be the same. It'll be the same length, and Carolyn will still be our pastor. The time of the new service and the date of the new service will be January the 6th, 2019, and it will be at 9:15 a.m. So here's an opportunity, I think, for us to come closer together than what we have been and enjoy maybe some of the fellowship that we haven't had in the past few years. And I appreciate all the input that you folks have given us. And I think we're just on a little bit more of our journey here. This is an opportunity to improve the garden and to become a stronger group. So that's the news for the day. I thank you all very much for your continuing commitment to this church, and hope you all have a wonderful Sunday. Thank you.
As I said, Larry and other members of the GLT will be available to share in conversation, any comments that you may have, and we'll also have a handout for you sharing exactly what Larry just did. So, you know what? The truth about life is that if we all just give a little bit of ourselves, and we each realize that we're all in this together, God will transform this world.